by accident from an economist to a career in design because I realized my passion lay in working with craftsmen, exploring culture, traveling across different parts of India to understand design design evolution. After my master's in economics, I did many short-term courses to learn design from senior professors. It's been hard work and learning, born out of voracious appetite for learning. And then, of course, learned my skill set, which is what you do in a fashion course: pattern making, art of draping, study of textiles, art of sketching, art of embroidery, study of crafts, art of creative expression, creative writing and collection on collection notes, styling aspects, study of fashion history, and history of costumes. As time rolled on, I worked on many special collections on prestigious platforms, design contests, and out on the media platforms, speaking about my work. My clients grew because of my unique sense of design, which differentiated me from others. Having studied in detail on basics, it's important to push barriers to find a unique sense of design. I had collections like Kadi Cool, Pop Patola, Parchment Blues, Parchment Blues inked in Ikat, and different various interesting concepts. My own personal preference for irreverence, pushing possibilities in design, rooted in my beliefs, yet modern, is always reflected in all my collections. The core values of my design philosophy are: I hold sacred the sensitive touch of the human hand, the meditative thought of the weaver, striving to bring to life the value of a natural fiber, a hand-woven textile, a handcrafted ensemble. So essentially creating fabrics, I weave a lot of textiles, both for the senses and the sensibilities. A study of contradiction in each one of us is evident in all my designs, layers to cloak and reveal secrets. There's another fashion for earth is something that I practice. What does earth mean to me is E for elements, A for art, R for revolution, T for technology, and H for the human hand. So essentially, I'm a designer who's worked on organic fibers, woven fabrics with master weavers, and across India. But now I think what the session is about is developing a design identity. So here's what I have to say. All true artists, whether they know it or not, create from a place of no mind, from inner stillness. The need of the hour is a personalized interpretation of fashion. A career in design should have a paradigm shift in thinking. Thinking design is like thinking science. Both require a mind to think of possibilities and a questioning mind which should ask why not. Design is an explosion of possibilities. A constant questioning mind will make contributions that are differential, hence starting a new school of thought in fashion. In a way, design development is a subconscious organic growth. The most thrilling part of the journey is the creative output. So the key to being a designer of distinction is to develop your own design identity. A crucial part of evolving your unique design identity is to have a continuous inner search, a mental quest to find who you are. How should you engineer your unique sense of design identity? It should connect to who you are and what you want to express. To be who you really are, you have to stay connected to your roots, rooted to your geographical area, cultural nuances, textiles and crafts, and thereafter giving it a modern or traditional sensibility. So your design identity, even with time, remains the same. Though sometimes you may surprise yourself on how your designs are metamorphosized due to constant outer influences. There are two kinds of design professionals. One before I continue further, who is looking for a career in design is about to start shortly in any design college needs to discover who you are and where you fit in and the direction you would like to head, and the direction you'd like to train your mind. There are two kinds of design professionals. One has a unique design sensibility and could develop his or her own label. And the other has to have the acumen for using tools that will be a great asset to the industry. Both are important. You need to discover which is your niche. How do you bring it to life? How do you bring design to life? How you innovate and add to an existing design? Eventually to use best tools that create designs envisaged. So some of the brands that have a distinct identity are Miyake, Kenzo, Yoji Yamamoto, all with Japanese cultural interpretations, modern interpretations. Armani, Cavalli, Versace have all stayed true to their Italian roots and sensibility. Moschino, his own anti-fashion statements. Chanel, modernity with heritage textiles. So all of these, and closer home you have Rohit Bal with his Mughal opulence. You had Wendell Rodrigues who brought Goa to your doorstep. Good Earth, which is quiche look. So on and on and on. But there are fewer Indian brands with a brand story or an identity. So that's limited names. Okay. So the path to success now, having created your unique design identity, is positioning of your brand, and that positioning should reflect the design language and of your identity. So deciding that, and then thereafter comes deciding the categories which you wish to choose: ready to wear, prêt, couture, bridal, based on your philosophy, whichever category you wish to choose. Creativity and innovation should keep in mind the wearability, setting good supply chain, retail distribution channels, branch to allied categories like accessory design, home furnishing, product design, and footwear, eyewear, whatever, textile furnishings, home, whole range of varied allied design where you can put your design philosophy, which you could have seen in Armani or Versace or even Missoni. They all have a whole range from eyewear to home furnishings to everything. So what you understand from this is we need to develop a distinct design identity, without which you would get lost. You could be a part of the industry, but then it just rests there. So there are challenges, of course. Human resource recruitment to build a great team is a very difficult thing to do, without which nothing is possible. You need a production team, you need a retail team, VM, marketing, PR, and so that the seamless flow from your design to the shelf happens. So this is a very difficult challenge, yeah. So and besides, you need to be the brand ambassador of your design philosophy. It's the most effective communication for the brand. The highs and lows, of course: market acceptance of your designs, funding gaps, competition, 365 days of constant research and development. Design is a career that is all consuming. I mean, once you get into it, it's years pass by, you don't even realize, but you're just so consumed because there's never any time. By the time you finish one season, you're on to the next, and every collection takes at least 2 months, especially if you're weaving your own textiles, it's unending. So there's a whole lot of that. But at the end of the day, in spite of all the challenges, the hugely enriching part of my journey has been the creative output. And of course, for me, working with weavers, craftsmen, has been the best part and the most soulful aspect of my profession. Because on one hand, you have this high-strung glamour and fashion and ramps and models and whatnot, celebrities. On the other hand, you have to work with craftsmen who are in the villages and towns. But for me, that makes me very grounded. It's two contradictory kind of people you deal with and lifestyles. So, but anyway, that in the nutshell. So,
Hi. Hi guys. I'm not a fashion designer, but I'm a writer and an educator, and I've been teaching creative writing for the last 15 years, roughly. And incidentally, I write a lot about clothes. I came out with a book a few years ago, well, not so long, 2 years ago, called Costumes of the Living, which is a collection of fashion-inspired prose poetry. And I just completed another book called A Fashion Dictionary. And how I can sort of chime in with what Deepika was just talking about is the story element. So the Fashion Dictionary is yet to come out, and I thought, the best way to demonstrate, so again, I'm not a fashion person, but I grew up around fashion designers in the family, textile engineers, textile designers, and so I grew up around a lot of fabric. My mother being from Kashmir also, that kind of brought a very sort of unique kind of identity, and I've written a lot about Kashmiri garments in this fashion dictionary. But to demonstrate, I think, what I'm doing, so there's a writing element, what I'm doing, and there's also how I bring that into a classroom at design schools. And it's about finding your story, it really is. Now, of course, I can't go in depth into the production of clothes because I don't know anything about that. But in terms of what I do to work with students is that, hey, listen, you may be studying at a design school, you may be learning basics and, rudimentary detail, essentials of garment construction and know all of that, but what is your identity? How do you transfer you as a person onto the tapestry of cloth? How does that happen? What is that transformation which takes place? So I just thought I would read one or two entries. The book is not out yet, so I've had to print out. And I actually start the. You need a mic. Okay. I actually start the dictionary with a quote by Elsa Schiaparelli from her biography, A Shocking Life. Fashion is born by small facts, trends, or even politics. Never by trying to make little pleats and furbelows, by trinkets, by clothes easy to copy, or by the shortening or lengthening of a skirt. And this is something I found in her book, but I'm going to read maybe one or two little entries from the dictionary to demonstrate what I mean in terms of trying to really cull out a meaning, or so what I thought I was doing, and is Paul here, by the way? He's not here. Okay. What he was talking about in the semiotics class, maybe we can make what you guys just did, is that Roland Barthes wrote a book called The Fashion Code, where he was talking about written clothes. So when you write about clothes, is it also a kind of clothing? It's like he showed you that pipe. It's not a pipe, it's an image of a pipe, right? I'm just linking it to the previous one. So I'm going to read two little entries, and there are 111 such entries in the dictionary. Some are longer than others. It's about a 200-page book, which seeks a publisher, if any publishers here. Just kidding. So this is border. Borders are often represented in clothing as being of a separate color and even pattern. Personally, I always enjoy the piping-like borders on the edges of all the sleeves of my thirans. Thirans is a Kashmiri garment, almost as if they were placed there unintentionally, as a mere accident, and not necessarily a stylistic deliberation, but perhaps to designate in which mill the cloth was produced, a sign more for the shopkeeper than the wearer. Borders can be either of contrasting color or ornament in relation to the rest of the body of the garment. Often, however, certain clothes have borders that bleed, borders that repeat the light motif or color of the garment in an exaggerated way. A charcoal black kurta that darkens on the edges of the sleeves, for edges, like borders, are often dark and sometimes even hidden in the inner lining. visible only by unfolding the husk of the garment, or perhaps, one sec, sorry about that, or perhaps perhaps a different color. Stripe borders on round neck t-shirts, for instance, emphasize beautiful thin long necks and function much like necklaces made of cloth. My grandmother crossed many a time borders of nations, this is true by the way, for the mere purpose of gathering cut fabric for her boutique shop located somewhere high up in the mountains. Certain nomadic tribes adorn their garments with intricate embroidery chasing along the bordering edges of all their clothes, a single undisturbed line woven into the fabric that not only speaks of their perpetual wanderings, traversing endless borders, but as a means to remind themselves of where they came from. This is, borders is an aspect of garments, and I thought, how do we kind of make this into a story, and what story do I see? And of course, this is it's very subjective. It's my own thing. Some of this is published, and I can't read too much today. But I thought it would be interesting to talk about the entry that ends or concludes the dictionary called zipper. Literally, zip it up. And I had heart surgery, so I have a zip on me, on my skin. I mean, it goes all the way from here. I won't take my shirt off, but that would be weird. But something that goes all the way down here. And actually, coming back to Schiaparelli, here we go. So this is the entry. It's called zipper. It ends with this, zipper. A fastener that initially was camouflaged in clothing until Elsa Schiaparelli incorporated them on sportswear in 1930 and introduced exceedingly large, ornate zippers into a collection of evening dresses in 1935. Although Schiaparelli could alter visual phenomena with much ease and grace, she believed in magic and render radical transformations that nevertheless expressed themselves subtly. Who else could have made a shoe sit on a head as comfortably and naturally as a hat? She still worked within a human framework, unlike many other designers today. By introducing the conspicuous zipper, she understood that hidden things can in fact be removed from their hiding places. Like a wound that has been stitched up by a zipper, a mechanical scar that by virtue of a kind of surgery closes what was once open. And I'm not going to read any more from this dictionary, but this is an exploration of how I relate to clothing and how, so I do this with fashion kids, students who study fashion. I say, look, what clothes matter to you? Why, if you had a collection, so I do stuff with kids, they try to write about their own sartorial history, try to write about, I remember even you should bring these clothes to your class. Like for example, I did it with a school here, a fashion school here, I can't remember the name. And these fashion students brought, frocks they wore when they were 3 years old. They still had them at home. Because who knows that? I've written a lot about childhood in this dictionary, for example. I was very fat as a child, and my mother, being from Kashmir, would dress me up in Pathani suits because the clothes that were ready-made didn't fit me. And I still wear them, and I've written a whole long story which is coming out in the anthology, but it's also in the dictionary. My relationship to this garment, and I think what I try to do is probe fashion students to say, okay, what are garments that mean something to you? Like for me also shawls mean a lot because I grew up with a family from Kashmir, so there were always shawls, some getting stolen, some getting borrowed, some missing, all that enters. The narratives around clothing, because clothing is something which is primordially human. We are the only beings that dress. Other animals, even ants, make homes, but there's no other, like a dog doesn't suddenly start wearing a t-shirt, right? There's no other being that dresses And it's one of the most primordial acts and ritual. And hence, we have an anthropological, deep-seated anthropological relationship to what we wear. It's not an arbitrary thing. You know, some people say, I don't care what I wear. Even you not caring is also a kind of relationship. So that's what I try to do. And I guess if some of you want to be fashion students, you know, it's very essential. And I think what Deepika pointed out was very interesting. You know, she came as an economist. And I know her personally, and she brings so much of herself which has nothing necessarily directly related to clothing, but she transfers that sense. And so was Schiaparelli, incidentally also someone who didn't study fashion. You know, she grew up in an artistic household. She brought history, Greek history, onto the fabric. And Versace was doing the same thing. I think one thing we should always be aware of in academia is that, okay, you can go to a design school, but make sure that you still have to educate yourself in things beyond clothing, because you can bring that into your clothing. It's also about, otherwise you'll just be following trends. You'll see, oh, today, off-shoulder top is going, so you should make an off-shoulder top. Tomorrow this is going, but you know, and Deepika and I've had this conversation, you know, brands like Versace or Schiaparelli, in spite of the fact that Schiaparelli is not what Schiaparelli was when Schiaparelli was alive and Elsa was alive, I'm talking about as if I knew her, but is leave a legacy. I think all art, and Deepika and I have had this conversation privately, I think both as artists, me as a writer, her as a fashion designer, want to leave a mark somewhere. You know, it's not just about making clothes, it's about saying something through that. And I think people like Schiaparelli managed to do that because they were going beyond that, right? And I think that's quite a bit for today.
Thank you, Deepika. Thank you, Gaurav. I think that was a brilliant context that both of you all set. You know, Deepika, thank you for being detailed in terms of how you've actually approached your, your collections. How the fact that you need to communicate in an authentic voice, and finding, like you said, reflect. You know, go inside. You know, sometimes the answers inside help us move in the right direction and actually express ourselves very creatively. And as Gaurav said, there's such subtle nuances. You know, there are such different things that I play. You know, that you need to kind of grasp at different elements. Sometimes, you know, when you're designing something, and I think many people, whether it's fashion or any other field, they may go through an experience where they're grasping at different things, trying to find something that they can call their own, right? Everyone here is really trying to understand, how do I create my own identity? It's not like this person, it's not somewhat like that person, it's my identity. And I just want to ask you, Deepika, when you are starting off on this process, right, is it really important to be radically different just be radically different for the sake of being different? Or how do you actually, do that something which is truly unique?
Most often you find people, you find designers. I really find this, one of the reasons I agreed to come today and I really want to speak to people who are going into a design school is simply because design students should be, tutored properly. It's not about the red carpet, it's not about those outlandish costumes. Though, however, if it has a meaning, as a designer, I have done some clothes which may look outlandish to most people, but that was a part of a story because I was presenting a story. So I did express it, because sometimes you have to remember, on the ramp you just have 12 minutes, 15 minutes, and you just have to say everything very quickly because attention span of people is so limited, and it makes your career for that season, because your clothes have to depend on your reviews, your media reviews as to how your garments are going to be sewn or sought out for demand. So No, I am not one of those. I've always walked the balance. Whatever my creative expression, I've ensured that it's wearable because I want somebody to wear my garment. I don't want it to be, I don't mind being in a museum, but I want people to wear it, enjoy it. And most of my garments are classics, even though there's so much, there are little innovations that people don't realize. And in my case, my canvases have all been unique because I weave them, from across the country. But like this is a traditional piece, but the trouser I'm wearing is a fabric that I've woven. So I would blend, say, silk and work with DuPont to blend lycra into the silk. So there are lots of things. It's a satin lycra silk, which I've woven myself. So I mean. What I'm saying is I keep contemporizing all the textiles, heritage textiles, in new age fibers, and I've been a brand ambassador for a company called Lenzik, Tencel. It's basically Tencel, and I've been with them for many collections and many times. So what I constantly try to take a new age fiber technology innovation and bring it back to a traditional textile. And that's what I love doing because that just upgrades everybody around you. Like I started my career, I'll show you the photographs, I started my career with Khadi. And I worked with Tencel again, that was the beginning, where I blended Khadi and Tencel to create a new Khadi. So all the defects you see in Khadi, the coarseness, the color bleeding, I tried to arrest it, but also, since the fabric was so phenomenal, I ensured my silhouettes were also to match up to that textile that we had invented. So I always work around drape. India is a land which never really stitched clothes. We were always into drapes. So most of my garments would be based on draping technology, like dhotis and stuff like that. No. There is a time when you want to express your idea and it has to be really part of your story. Otherwise, making outlandish clothes, what you see on the red carpet is not a reality. Huh? That is totally unrealistic. So students who base, when I go for design contests, and I feel so bad, because they misled to think that is what is fashion. That's not fashion. It has to be you. You can't just copy something and put it out there, mix two designs and say, okay, this cannot be that. Because eventually, collection after collection, consistently you have to be able to show your design skills. It will fall apart and people see through it. And so there are thousands of designers, I would say, who've fallen on the way. Because, they've copied something which is not them, and then they cannot keep up with it. So I don't believe in it. Even if it takes time, even if I don't do the most outlandish costume and get the media attention, I don't want to do it. If I believe in it, that's a different thing. So that's why design is something that has to be you. And it's not necessary to all have, everybody need not have individual labels, because honestly, it's a huge financial journey, risk rather. You need deep pockets, you need a financer who believes in you. It's a very tough thing, because at the end of the day, I design, I also monitor my products. I also have to speak to the clients. I also have to see how my garment is displayed in the stores. So it's a huge thing. Whereas suppose I was in a corporate, I only had to design. I didn't have to do where to manufacture at the best cost, or which shelf space my product should be on. So it's a tough battle. But I think I was too much of a individualist. I didn't think I would fit in a corporate setup. So I really had no choice, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I said, let me just be on my own and do my own thing. It's had its very tough times and good times, but I just chose it. But a lot of design labels are doing very well. And individual design labels can create stories, brands can't. Very rarely so. Very, very rarely.
You know, there's so much about what you were saying, it made me realize that when you're doing something on your own, okay, it's not just the creative process. There are so many elements which relate to the business of fashion. Like you talked about logistics, you talked about supply chain, you talked about positioning, which is like, drawing in from marketing and advertising. And so you need to position yourself correctly. You're creating an image, because at the end of the day, I think it was Sigmund Freud who said that the world as it is perceived is the world that's behaviorally important, right? So how people perceive you and your output makes such a big difference, right? And let me just transport you for a second. Like, if you can think of yourself in an Egyptian bazaar back in the days. An Egyptian bazaar was really popular as a congregation point where people would come and trade different kinds of goods, sometimes even services. So you have the smell of spice, you have the smell of tobacco, you have the smells of food that's being grilled. But more importantly, there are a lot of conversations. There's a lot of haggling. There are people even swapping stories. Oh, you know what happened in India? This is what happened. Oh, you know what happened in UK? This is what happened. So people would exchange conversations. And I think, storytelling has really old roots. Any brand, any creative endeavor, if you kind of break it down, if you see the most successful ones, they're actually, in a way, telling a story. And I think fashion is so interesting because sometimes you can tell a story with every collection, with every release you can tell a story. So
I didn't elaborate because I just thought I was tired of speaking of what I do. But I've had collections called the Khadi
Cool, where, for instance, when I went to pick up Khadi in the Khadi Bandar in Delhi, and I found, runs, like a missing yarn, so there were little gaps. So I took that as a design element and created a collection called Khadi Cool. And yes, it's sometimes very sad to say, most of my garments have more appreciation outside of India than in India. Because the minute I made this collection, I had Germans buying this, and they understood exactly what I had done. And so that's the thing. Fashion education and people are not really trained or groomed in this. They just read this red carpet and they think that is fashion. But there's so much. So what I was showing was, you could make a defect, like if you had a scar, you make that. There's a model who made that. There was a designer who used this model to make that into a fashion statement. So it's about being bold, being who you are, and showing a defect as an ornament. So there are a lot of things like that. Some of my collections are like pop patola. I did pop icons in a patola weave. And why? Because I thought, the youth should know our textiles. And nobody looks at these textiles. And finally, at Lakme, when I was showing my collection, people really loved it. And I had a whole lot of Gujaratis who were so happy about this, and they said, oh, now I know how to use my grandmom's sari or whatever. but my thing is, I want the youth to understand our heritage and improvise on that. And I see that, and I somehow feel in 20 years, I see a lot of that today with the young designers, and I feel very happy that they've, so it really is important to show a path. It's not just about selling. Like, there are times when we have clients that say, like you were saying, hot pink is in and hot pink off-shoulder top is in. And they walk into your store and there are like 100 stores and they, do you have a hot pink off-shoulder top? No. And then, they're gone in a second. So I really don't care about that client. I'm really not interested. And the clients who come to us, like the people who appreciate his writing, are genuinely people who know a creative thought and it's a new school of thought. So they really appreciate us. So that sometimes it's not the mass of appreciation, it's the quality of appreciation you get. But having said that, he's a writer, so he can sit in a room and write the book. But in my case, I employ hundreds of people, staff, there's a whole lot of overhead, so it's not that easy. I keep trying to walk the balance, and I think we've been successful in some sort of way. But I think I still need to, I don't do bridal the way I hate bridal, okay? But that's really where the money is. Okay? So I want to be able to interpret. We have 35 states, and we have 35 different brides. But no, everybody just wants to see that one Punjabi bride. I'm sorry. Both of you. Yeah, but I want to be able to see, there's a bride from Kerala who's different, the bride from Tamil Nadu is different, the Gujarati, but you can never see that. Why? Because everything is, just standardized into one. And I had a buyer once tell me, there's so much to India, but I just see one kind of design. And it's mediocrity, really. I mean, if any of you have ever heard of the book Ayn Rand, it's really about what's happening today, and the media is promoting mediocrity, and this way we will never have brands, we'll never have brand stories that can be compelling to sit in any place in the world. And we'll only keep manufacturing for brands, but we'll never be a brand ourselves. And it takes a lot of guts and courage to stand up and do what you really believe in. It's very depressing sometimes, but when you get appreciation, it's truly worth it. Yeah. I mean, it's not like we've not done celebrities, but I never promote that on my Instagram as my only selling point. When I'm on fashion platforms, people ask me, they say, so who's your, a model? Who's your star model for your collection? And I'm telling them, no, star model is my garments, is my creativity. Because it takes lakhs of rupees to put a celebrity there. It really doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather spend it on development, on research, on my staff. I don't know, I don't yield to that. And which is why I've lost out a lot sometimes. Celebrities come to me, I dress them. I'm happy to do so, but I don't want to pay to just get that celebrity. I don't want to do that. They wear my clothes, great. They don't wear my clothes, they don't come on my ramp, I'm okay. I'm not going to pay them to sit on those front rows, and I'm just not interested. So I've always been different, and my concepts have always been complex. So when I come on to the fashion platform, media always asks me, why is it so complex? Do you really think you are right in bringing something so complex onto this platform? I said, yeah, why not? Because where else would I have the attention of 300 media from all the top channels listening to me? I said, I'm going to use this, and I think I've been very successful in that, in bringing many heritage textiles which haven't been heard or seen by the young people today. And it helps the weavers, and it helps villages. It helps their survival. So it's really important.
That's really, really good points, Deepika. And Gaurav, when I was hearing you speak earlier, I realized that you write so well and you speak so well. It's so eloquent, I think in terms of how you express yourself, and like when you were reading that section on borders, I was kind of hanging on to every word. Now, when I look at you, you've actually, been such a strong proponent of creative thinking. You've actually had workshops with students in India, Nepal, Switzerland, Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic. But what I was trying to come to is, when you're thinking creatively, is there a process, or are there building blocks that students can, perhaps use or deploy to think creatively? Anything you could say on that?
That's actually a tough one, but let me, because I don't think there's a procedure to be creative. But okay, so I asked myself, because I've done these creative writing workshops in all sorts of spaces, and from a village school in Kashmir to a school in Switzerland or whatever. But I think what I try to do in a creative writing workshop is firstly create a space. I'm not really teaching writing, because I don't think I can do that. I don't think anyone can actually teach someone else how to write. but create a space that allows people to open up. Because one of the major problems that we don't realize is that there's all forms of self-censorship. Because actually expressing what you want to express is a dangerous thing. It takes courage, what Deepika just said. So you may get, for example, talking about stories, brands are actually articulating some kind of semblance to a story, but then how is it that all of the stories sound the same? Because it's not really their story, we're talking about unique identity here. So for example, the catchword now is sustainability. Everyone is sustainable. Now, is that the only thing you got to say about yourselves? Is that the only thing left? Hey. Because it sells now, but maybe there'll be no legacy, because you know what? 5 years down, no one gives a damn about being sustainable any longer, because it's sold out. It's a capitalist thing. You understand, like you're working within it, you're a designer, but you're still working in a market. So I think it just takes courage to be creative. The biggest thing about being creative is, you know what, before anyone else censors you, you've already censored yourself without even knowing it. You're thinking about what kind of audience is going to be listening to you. It's like, I wrote about a controversial figure, and I got, for lack of, but I got shit for it, okay? I wrote about a controversial figure, but I still wrote about it, and I got it published, and people wrote me, and I entertained the things where I said, I had to write this, and there are people, so I think, coming back to your question, just a simpler, I think use your courage to be unique. It's not just about, see, being unique is a challenge when it's not so cool to be unique. You understand? Is when it takes a little guts to go against the grain, perhaps, like what Deepika is saying. She's not going to dress up the celebrities, or she's going to bring these complex ideas to a crowd which may not even appreciate it. But this is her soul is asking, hey, I'm going to actually use this. So I think creativity, more than requiring any particular skill set, because the problem is we reduce all these things to skills. Is about letting the soul fly. Okay, and this is what I try to do in my workshops, is open up. Okay, whatever's inside you. That's what's very essential.
I just want to add to this. Every fashion week, every place where I really have to show my, my real birth and my talent, is always something that I have to have an inspiration. So my staff, my partner, she gets very stressed because I wouldn't have my sketches ready like 2 months before my, a big, gigantic show. But I just don't feel the inspiration, then I just can't do it. Because when I'm going to put my signature on it, and when I'm going to say this is my creativity and this is my idea, it has to be from within. So then I'm waiting for sometimes for this elusive thing that, suddenly sparks me up. But until it happens, I don't do it. Sometimes I really keep people on the edge, because then, putting the collection and landing up in the ramp, sometimes like we work through the night and I'll take the flight at 6 and land up there at 12. I've done that. But if it doesn't happen, it's a really, you really have to do justice to yourself. So the inspiration has to come from within. And I've often said this, it's when I do a fashion week, it's literally like a birth of a baby. Because, there's the concept, then there is, then you take the concept and you say, what kind of silhouettes and what kind of character are you envisaging? So footwear to makeup to everything. The music, the way she's going to walk, the lighting. So it's a little like a film production. So it's a huge, because if I don't do it to the T, I cannot, really convey my creative thought, and that's a huge, and sometimes after a fashion week, I'm like just exhausted, and then I'm like out for a month or two, because there's so much of yourself that you put out there. And those others, there are other ways in career in design. I've done that multiple of times when I don't bite the dust for commercial reason. I do a lot of design consulting projects, so many, for many big brands. They sign me on to be able to, like I did Karnataka Silks Corporation, I'm now with Lenzig, worked with DuPont. So what I'm saying, when don't compromise. You also can look at other ways of, being able to earn your monies. It's not necessary to do what others are doing. There's so much. There's home, there's furnishings. Because I weave textiles, I can also do home textiles. So what I'm saying, never compromise.
It's very interesting what Deepika just said about how she was waiting for inspiration. And I think this is something I should...
I just must say,
I don't wait always. Sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
sometimes it happens.
Sometimes, I mean, something. It can be just a painting. It just, the Pop Patola collection happened out of a painting, and it just happened. So I have no idea why it happened, how it happened. Something about the girl in that picture, it just made me do this collection. So
It's very unpredictable.
it's very difficult to say where your inspiration could come from. It could be from a fabric. It could be, for me, it's been from a Haveli in Delhi which had layers of walls. So I kept thinking, layers of civilization have lived here. Different kinds of people have lived in this Haveli which is 100 years old. So I want to excavate and find out. And then came out a collection out of that thought. So it's very unpredictable. It's not something so structured. It's your reaction to something around you. So
I think we, because we are friends, I think we talk about how there are no accidents. So it's not just sheer accident that she happened to stare at a painting and get inspired. And I think what we need to, like, I don't know, as artists, there's also a lot of, people say, in me there's a lot of lateral movement. Like, people are moving like this, but I'm moving like this. Thoughts will come out of nowhere. Maybe some, UFO planted it, or some alien or something, or, no, because you see, the imagination is something we haven't really explored, because no clinical psychology can manage that. You don't know where the hell half your thoughts are coming from.
And India really needs to develop brands. Really, really. I mean, if you look across the world, all the designers, big brands source out of India. They source everything out of India. Fabrics to trims to jewelry to semi-precious stones, embroidery. Countless carriers are employed by, say, Armani or Lagerfeld. So why is it we don't, sell a brand? We're only selling the goods. So that's why it's important to be original, and we really must lay thrust on that. I think a lot of the startups in India in terms of innovation in digital technology have done that. But why not design? Because this really employs our craftsmen, the lower sections of the society. So it's very important to think different. You have to have a story and your own story.
Right, and the story. And I know, I was just, because this creativity thing, and I think she brought up, and I think this is probably the plight of many creative people, whether they're designers or musicians, that if that thing is not coming to you, how can you force it? And I think, but at the same time, be open for it to arrive from the least expected place. So we've had this conversation regarding other things. There's a lot of synchronicity, in fact, we arrived here also together. I was not even invited to this place. They had spoken to each other. We had just happened to have spoken to each other. Only then that connection was made. But I said, oh, accident. No, it's not an accident, okay? So some of these creative ideas that she went to Khadi Bhandar in Delhi and saw there was a missing thing in the yarn, and that became an unexpected prompt for an entire collection. So I think that's one thing about creativity. It works in unexpected ways. And so the idea is keep your antenna on. You never know where that's going to come from. Maybe in a dream. Most of my stories come in dreams.
That's amazing,
And it's sometimes it's all there in your head, and very difficult to explain to somebody. Every time I see it, I'm excited. I'm like, wow, I'm going to do this. But nobody else understands what I'm trying to say. So it's a long procedure. By the time the garments get made, and then out there when we're doing our trials, and then you see, okay, and sometimes, of course, you need to know your tools, which is all your skill set, because your idea has to be effectively communicated or implemented. Like
writing, he has thought, and he has to be able to communicate that.
The same for me, I have to be able to communicate, implement it right. So there's a huge, lot of the designers fail in this. Sometimes they have grandiose concepts, but by the time they come to the implementation, things go wrong. And that's because you're not trained enough in your tools. So tools are so crucial, but it's not everything. That's what we are both trying to say. Yeah. I'd like to show some of my visuals if you want.
Say that. Yeah, could you please do that?
This is from a collection called Parchment Blues. So they were layers, like I was telling you, the Haveli which had layers. So if you actually look at the textile,
You'll see that I have layered multiple ways, mock layering, textile layering, so many different ways. So it's really what I saw on the wall in the Haveli in Chandni Chowk. Okay, so yeah, this is the same thing. This is, and somehow I always like the girl who's a little different from the time of today. She's in a different world, and in fact, when we did the shoot, we had natural lighting, and we also had the lights. We tried to create like a surreal feeling to the shoot. So there's different things. If you see, there's a garment, and then suddenly pleats are coming out. It's all about the way I feel in terms of irreverence. But yet I've used the ikat textile, and so I've never let that go. I've never let my roots not be there. So that's. This is when I got this award, design award from Femina, and yeah, this is another award. So I'm always the designer with a conscience. That's why I put this to show you. Yeah, this next thing. For me, Bangalore is literally the Paris of India, because Bangalore has a sense of design and sense of fashion which is very underplayed and very subtle, which is very different from Delhi, Calcutta or Bombay. So I love Bangalore, and that's where I am from. So this is it.
Those cities are more glitzy. Yeah.
Sorry?
More glam. They
Yeah.
glam up a bit.
Bombay, because there's too much nylon, there's too much, I don't know what kind of fabrics they use. Delhi has, of course, the grandeur, but I still have a store I still do very well in Bangalore, Delhi. There is this glitzy crowd, but there are also people who appreciate art and craft. Yeah. Next one. Like this was when I did worked in Hampi. There's a village called Ilkal, and there used to be 3 lakh weavers there before, and now there's barely 30 or 100 weavers, and I wanted to bring them onto a fashion platform, and so we did different kind of checks and whatever. So this was one such. Ilkal is this is it. Next one. And this is of course all the celebrities, because I thought if somebody is interested, Katrina in her early days, Deepika in her early days, this Deepika again. We've done all of them, Anushka Sharma to Deepika to Katrina to everybody. Okay, here's what I really love. Okay, if you see, this collection was probably done in 2006 or 7, but this is a houndstooth print. And I've used the ikat on the sleeve. So I always do that contradiction. And if you see my sleeves, there's this, there's the origami sleeve, which is like very like the pent up. It's just to say, do your cuff differently. Or even the embroidery I've used is very, buttons which I've used are very different. So then this pattern for Earth, which I really believe in. The elements, art, revolution, technology, and the human hand. I just never want to forget the human hand, because that's really, really what is valuable to me.
This is my first collection, Khadi and Tencel. This was a shoot in the stud farm. Okay, so here's this, wraparound trouser, and this was in 2001. And in 2022, I did every year I do a collection in Khadi. And I still do that variations of trousers. So what I'm trying to say is my style has always remained the same. I may innovate, I may add, I may change it a bit. So what I'm saying, if it's really from within you, it can never change. There are outer influences, but that's it. Yeah. This was Eri the piece silk, which I really worked on the weave, on the process. So I go really technical into the textile as well. In special collections, that's also an Eri shawl. This Eri is a yarn from the northeast, and the worm is allowed to fly, so it's a piece silk.
Wow.
Yeah, so then I've been working on it for a long time now, and it has natural thermal properties. It's cool in summers and can be warm in winters. This is denim green, denim that we at the next one. The denim that there's no wash on it. There's no acid wash. There's no nothing on it. It's just a rinse wash. It's a completely green denim. So because denim uses the maximum water, and all the acids used in it really harm the environment. So it really bothers me. So here is this. Yeah. This is when I was a consultant for Karnataka Silks. So, but I was just a designer for the textile. But I also helped them to do the shoot, because I was very bothered about how they were going to do my sari that I had designed. So I actually spent time, went to Lalitpal Palace and got this shoot done. Now this said a lot. This because it's Mysore Palace, and it's a textile heritage of Mysore, so there's all of this. It's all pure gold, huh? The saris are pure gold.
Wow.
Yeah, worth weight in gold. They're complete gold. They're the only people. Again, it was out of totally crazy conscience that I felt like world had like Patek Philippe, which said pass on to generations. And this product is world class. It really can be passed on. There are people, grandmoms, who have 60, 70-year-old saris, and they still keep it because it's worth in gold. So I wanted to tell the world that. So I spent 2 years doing this, and yeah. This was, of course, Popatola, and this was the painting I had seen. It's not here, but the painting I had seen of this girl, which I got inspired by, had this forehead colored. So that's how this was born here. Yeah, it was really, but this is the weaving with this was very difficult. So it's modernizing heritage textiles. Mm-hmm. So if you see the detailing, it's so complex. It's like so much of detailing, layering. In fact, there's a script on the calf, but I've covered it with a transparent, silk. Then there's many layers. I really felt like that at that time. I realize now I'm much more mature, I'm younger, and more, there's always a outburst. Yeah, this was in that Haveli which I was talking about, which I'd seen, and I went back there to shoot. And if you see, the trousers are all wrapped around. Even this, there's a textile, then there's another textile over it, and there's huge amount of layering in this. This was the Ilkal checks. Ultimately, you have to be able to
heritage textiles we have.
Presentation and those things.
Wow, that was amazing, amazing. So, come back. Yeah. You know, it just made me realize that when I was seeing some of this work, when she was saying that you got to be true to yourself, stick to what is essentially you, and when you're creating something unique, you just keep this in mind that when you're innovating, there's this concept called radical innovation, and there's this concept called incremental innovation. And actually speaking, all these innovations are still valid. And again, from a conceptual level, there are three kinds of innovation. You could do product, process, or strategy. So product innovation is when you're creating completely new fabric. So in the context of Deepika, she's creating a brand new fabric. Process, the way you are making that fabric, or the maybe, for example, patola may be done in a particular way, but you've used a new process and you've made it different. So that's a process innovation. And then there's something called strategy innovation. Now I don't have a relevant example to share from the field of fashion, but one person who does strategy innovation is this guy called Michael Dell from Dell Computers. And he said, I'm not going to make ready-made laptops. I'm going to let people configure their laptop and then I'm going to deliver it to them. And that's how he started in the States. That you choose what RAM you want. You choose, I want this keyboard, I want this display. And then you go online and you say order, and then Dell will make it for you and ship it to you. So the way the product is shipped out, or the way the product is finally reaching the consumer, that's a strategy innovation that he did. So when you're thinking creatively, you also have these different dimensions to play with. You can have incremental or radical, or you could then look at the product, the process, or the strategy. But it's really nice. I think when I was seeing this, I was actually realizing that in the span of your work, in the body of your work, you've actually done all of these.
I do wish my husband is a marketeer in hospitality, but really wish he would help me more because it's very stressful. I hardly have time, because I think my fabric should have been patented and I didn't, and that's very sad. Like this this bottom wear that I'm wearing is again very unique. It's a knitted ikat silk. So it's like
completely new.
Yes, completely new. But that's the thing. I need more strategic marketing initiatives. Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. Gaurav, anything you'd like to add?
Anybody would like to ask?
Yeah, I think we've been speaking, and I think sorry, we kind of enjoyed this banter for so long that we kind of lost track of time. Please, if there are any questions that you'd like to ask my esteemed panelists, be happy to take that up now.
Anything?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Is it important to become, is it important to take fashion designing course to become a fashion designer?
Yeah, please.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. It should, ideally, it should be more design oriented, like the way NID has, but NIFT is totally hardcore fashion, from the word go. But it's limiting. If you just do only fashion design, or because I came from something totally different, the way I've approached it is totally different. So I stand different because I approached it different. But yes, if you want to be a designer, you need to go to a fashion school. And though I think design is more crucial than just fashion design. I love the students from NID far more because they're so put together, they're so real, and they're really rooted. Every design that comes, it comes out of really what they think. But NIFT is not like that. I shouldn't say this, but yeah.
Anyone from NIFT here?
Ma'am, sir.
Wait, yeah, any other questions, please? Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering if you'd say it was easier when you started, or if it's easier now?
It was easier when I started.
Because there was no pressure.
Yeah. I mean, I literally was the only designer from the south to touch the national platform, and yeah, I guess the competition was much lesser. You have far more people, and it's become more what do you say, financially draining right now to do a show. I mean, the show itself is a magnum operation, and it's a financial thing. And fashion weeks are not cheap; they're like a couple of lakhs. And then, no matter which part of the country you are, you have to do your collection, put your bag, reach there, your stay, I mean, it's very difficult. That's why I keep thinking I want to do something about, more like digital, where you shoot the collection where the designer is. You go to their place, shoot them, and telecast it worldwide. I've been thinking of this, and it really matters to me. It's not fair. And it's very difficult. I mean, it's very difficult. You can't just wait for all your collection pieces to sell by the time you make the new collection, because your workers would have run away by then. You need to keep the machine rolling. It's very difficult. But I think if you're talented, truly, if you're really different and unique and you have the courage to be so, today there are financial backers for young people. Like Lakme itself gives a more economized show cost. And then there are stores, design stores, which are willing to, sponsor the designer in terms of fabrics or even sell their merchandise for them. But still, it's always for the commercial designers that you get these. I mean, little different and talented, but still commercial somewhere, because otherwise the store, are all commercial stores. It's not, and I've always felt that you have to have your own store to tell your story.
There's no space
So,
left for brand image.
yeah, I create so many stories in my store that I'm not able to do in a multi-branded store.
Makes sense.
Something you don't have control over. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No,
I have
but-
like a billion more questions. But
No, but I'm just saying, there is an opportunity for designers to get into corporate brands. Nothing wrong with that. You can learn your skills, you can learn your tools, you learn all the way of, the entire network of your fabric, your trim, your button, your label guys, everything. And then you branch out, but till then you have to keep yourself going in who you are, because you'll still be doing a pant and a shirt and a t-shirt and I don't know what, a kurta, whatever. And if you're too, and then of course brands. I'm actually, we run an organization called the Center of Excellence for Myntra. So I oversee a lot of the standardization and quality for Myntra and all the brands, all their brands. So I see the designers cry there. They don't have the kind of freedom I do. They like told to do clothes in 250 rupees, 350 rupees, because then it goes on, then there's 60% discount. This online has really messed up quality, and it's really rubbish.
Change customer
It's
expectations.
very,
also.
very cruel to people because it's just, I don't know what. People are, it's just price war and that's it. So I see designers cry and their creativity is they have to walk in the very narrow path. But yet there are designers who do something a little different. But the minute they do it, they have the sourcing person saying, hey, this cost is going up, and they discount it even without the designer knowing. Like they just cut off something which cost them 100 rupees more or 50 rupees more. So these kind of things are there. But I think the first way to maybe for young people is to go to the corporate world, get employed in big brands, and Bangalore Lift always caters to that. They're very smart. So literally all the designers are in Madura, in Arvind, you name the brand, they're all from Lift Bangalore. They train them for the industry. And here, when I do campus recruitment, I found many a time, I never find the designers I want. They're too basic for me, and so I've always gone to places like, say, maybe Gandhinagar, Chennai, even Hyderabad. I find designer who are really different. They're not, it's different. It's nothing wrong. I mean, one should work, and as a matter of fact, you should work with somebody before you branch out alone. You just know how, you really understand the process and the methods. And in that meantime, if you really want to have your own label, you start figuring out what you're going to do and where you're going to go for this fabric or so that way it's better that way. I mean, I think today if I had to start again, maybe I would have done that, because I would have burnt my hands and then But I was in a hurry to get started because I already finished my masters and I wanted to be financially independent, so I had to do it fast. But I would recommend people to work on their own, work under a company, and then branch out.
Excuse me. Thank you. Maybe that's the last question we'll take because we've really overshot the time. But please go ahead. Yeah.
I have a habit of researching a lot of top designers' sketches and fashion. It feels that whenever I see them, it feels they have left no stone unturned. So when you see there's a lot of competition here right now in this generation. So do you think those who are beginners, they can also start and leave a mark like that, where they feel a new creative ideas can come up them?
Of course. But it should be you. Don't do anything which you cannot sustain, which is not you, which you will be apologetic about afterwards. Yes, if you want to get the truth of the matter is, yes, you have to get the attention of clients, media, industry, and to do that, there is a lot of homework and research, and one of the ways you should do it is actually going into the history of costumes, history of fashion, and studying designers. Like, we don't have anybody in India, that's very sad, but you have a lot of designers. I mean, like he said, Schiaparelli, even Chanel. The way she was commercial compared to Schiaparelli, but she was, and my favorite is Balenciaga. And they still have the brand with different designers, but they try to keep to that philosophy. And Miyake and Missoni. Missoni actually went to Indonesia and copied some of the ikat designs in knits, and they've made what do I say, a kingdom out of it. I mean, they do everything. They do knits on cushions, and so the research is the crux. Really is the crux. And why being you? So that's a difficult thing to be, but yeah. And I really want to help designers, young designers in schools, even if sometimes I offend the faculty in charge, because they're really not teaching them anything. It's hurting to see a young person go so wrong, when there's no future for that, what they've done. See, I've been in Wills India, I've been on the design platform, Cotton Council, different schools of fashion. And I feel very bad because what I see is really not up to the mark. It's very sad.
So that's earlier also in the day we heard Paul Brewski said that before anyone else critiques your work, you should be your own biggest critic.
Yeah,
and that kind of pushes you to go further and raise that bar of excellence.
That's really what I do. My staff actually gets scared when I walk into my unit, because I will ultimately find 10 things that go wrong, and we have such limited time to turn it out onto a fashion platform, but I don't compromise. I know my profits are reduced because I'm spending so much time on one garment, but my soul doesn't allow me to. But then that really pays. And important to criticize yourself. All the time, it's something. You create something, just critique it like you're an outsider, very objective.
That's amazing. I think it's been an amazing session. Let's give a big round of applause to Gaurav. I'd like to request my colleague Vitali to give a small token of
And
appreciation.
any of you want to talk to us personally, I'm available. Any
Yes,
doubts you have anything,
I know we couldn't take all the questions, but we can interact with the panelists just a little after the session.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. You've been an amazing audience, and
really
thanks for being
supporting
here.
us.
We really
and,
appreciate
yeah.
your energy and your attention.
Thank you.